I get those goosebumps. I get those goosebumps every time I'm around you. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the high, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Goosebumps is back, and so is Daz's dodgy internet. It looks like you're a bit right now.
Up and down, yeah. It just went bad there right before the intro was on.
Literally. Look, we're here. Welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC, the full loaded transfer show, back in business. And look, we've got the boys in the house. How we doing, boys? Daz, Richie, Chris, how are things this week? Week 2 of the summer window, should we say, even though it's not even open yet. How are things with you all?
I'm good. Getting those goosebumps now. Things are going to start to happen now pretty soon, you would imagine. And a lot of names chopping and changing every day, and a couple of times during the day. So it is hard to keep up. But we'll have Graeme here with us tonight to set us on the straight and narrow, and tell us what awaits us in the summer.
Definitely, Richie. How was things? Plodding?
No, it's a little bit better than plodding, to be fair. It's probably plodding plus, to be fair, at the minute. Just a little bit rushed off your feet, get ready to go out with Joel's next week. So it's nice to have my last show of this week as the full transfer show. It's always lots to talk about, a lot of excitement, lots of news to pass on to all of the viewers and stuff like that. And then I can go off and just enjoy the week off.
Of course. And the main man, Chrissy Hall, how you doing, fella?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, all good. First day back at work today after being off for nearly a week. So that was a bit of a shock to the system, but yeah, all good, mate. And yeah, been really, really looking forward to this show. So yeah, can't wait. And great to have Graeme on with us once again.
Definitely.
Before we start, Pete, we must say, because we always forget it, we always leave to the end. Make sure you hit that like button, and if you want to get in the chat, you must be subscribed, so that'll enable you to chat in. And we have a members draw coming up as well later on, so stay tuned for that as well. Massive giveaways this summer, as we've already mentioned. Land yourself a new Newcastle kit.
Definitely. And of course, thanks for watching. 160 already in the chat, and I'm sure many more to follow as well. And click that notification bell, because as Daz said, plenty more shows over the course of the summer. And by clicking that bell, you will not miss them. Right, welcome to the chat. So many already in there. Of course, Lisa Mole, our resident spanner. Brett C, Kamal. We've got GK is in the house. Kendo, welcome Kendo. Connie, Stephen, we could go on. Craig Lee, always in there. We could keep going on for 160 more. But look, let's get the man in. 90 minutes own Graeme Bailey to talk all things Newcastle United. I've been looking forward to this one this week. Let's get him in.
Here's Graeme. Welcome, Graeme.
How you doing, guys?
Welcome, Graeme.
Great to have you on again, and have you with us for another mad summer, I imagine, of Newcastle United transfer news. But I have to say, and it's important we start the show this way, is that I think some praise needs to go your way, because the last time you were on, you predicted Newcastle would secure Champions League football, where many others at that point didn't think that it was going to happen. So, you were bang on the money, Graeme. All praise to you. How do you feel
I
about
think
it?
at the start of the season, I think my main one, Pete, was, and I did a little bit on podcast to do. I tipped Newcastle to be the top finishing United in the league. I tipped them for. I was very high in Newcastle at the start of the season, and they gave me a good run for the money. Didn't quite get there, but a lot of people thought I was joking when I said that, and I wasn't far off.
Well,
No.
for a lot of the season, we were the top United, and we're the top United anyway. Of course, we are. But yeah, we did give them a run for their money. But look, Champions League football. Is it going to be a busy summer for Newcastle? And the question I've got for you first is there going to be a summer this summer in particular where we're going to go out and sign big? And because you put an article out a few weeks back saying about Eddie Howe confirming that Newcastle's desire for a marquee signing as PAF make transfer plans. What are your thoughts about that going into the season, Graeme?
Yeah, it's a complicated situation. You know, Eddie Howe has done a wonderful job. He really has. I've always said from the start of the season, guys, when I was with you, I thought the talent gap between your best player and your worst player was probably the biggest in the Premier League, and I still stand by that now.
Yeah.
But what Eddie's done is he's done wonderfully well. But the expectation levels now, it's top 4 every season is the minimum requirement. Top 5 actually, because it does change with the Champions League. We're going to get top 5 getting in, aren't we, from even next year or the year after. But now with Piff in charge, you know, they, as we can see from the Saudi Arabian Pro League, which Piff are running, and from the golf, etc., they want what's best. They want the best in the world here. And Eddie Howe's got a chance now to put that in place. But slowly catch your monkey is not their catchphrase here. You know, they want it now. And you know, Newcastle in the Champions League top 4 now, they have to strike while the iron's hot. Obviously, the club are trying to play down expectations levels, but let's not beat around the bush, guys. Eddie Howe, if Newcastle aren't top 5 by Christmas, he's probably going to be out of work. That's where we are now. It's just that is the ship that we're on now. The Newcastle are one of the biggest teams in Europe, in the world, and you're going to have to deliver. And I know Eddie will be saying, "Oh, we're not fishing in this big pond yet." He really is. You're fishing in the biggest pond in the world now, and you're after the biggest fish in that pond. And that's just where we're going. And we'll see this summer. You know, I did the previous story, which no doubt we'll get onto, about Neymar, etc., and Piff. And everyone says, "Oh yeah, we've got Amanda Staveley and Murdad and Jamie Rubin." Piff own 80% of Newcastle. They are, when we talk about majority shareholders, they really are majority shareholders. At the end of the day, what they want, they will get. And as we're seeing with this Saudi Arabian Super League, I know Piff are one of the big 4 clubs. They've made some remarkable signings already. And that isn't directly linked to Newcastle. I'm not saying it is, but that shows you where they're at. It shows you their commitment to football, which is a good thing for Newcastle. You know, they're not fly-by-nights. They're in here for the long haul. They're in here till Newcastle win the Premier League. But to do that, there's going to have to be sacrifices made, and they're going to give Eddie Howe that chance to do it. Yeah. But, you know, he's got to deliver. He really does. And to be fair to him, signing youngsters around the world is great. But he, as he admits there, you can see his tone is changing, guys. Can't you? Even the last few months, his tone's changing. He knows marquee signings are going to have to be made. And if he says, I want a left-sided forward, hey Piff, if Piff go and get your Neymar, then so be it. It's where we are now. You know, the Newcastle try to play this down for good reason. Of course you are. Of course the management want to play it down. You're not going to come out in public saying we're rubbing shoulders in the transfer market with Man City. They're not going to say that, but they are.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And look, we might as well talk about it because you brought it up, and it's an interesting point. If anyone's not seen it today, Graeme put an article out with regards to Neymar. There is interest from Saudi Arabia, also Barcelona as well. However, there is talk that PIF would like to sign Neymar with a view to potentially him coming to Newcastle. Look, I'll come to you boys with this. Chris, I'll start with you. Neymar. We've talked about him before. We've said not really. in terms of a player that we want, not really an Eddie Howe type of signing. But if he was to go to Saudi, and this is a big if, this is no guarantee here. If he was to go to Saudi and then PIF wanted him on loan at Newcastle for a minimal wage fee and minimal deal, PIF will cover that, I'm sure, in Saudi. Would you take it?
I think it sounds mad, doesn't it? And we've said in the past, that like we're not, Eddie Howe's brought us up since he's come in. Eddie Howe's brought us up to kind of not want that kind of signing. But I think, if you deep down, if you asked any Newcastle fan, Neymar Jr. is on a plate, do you want him? I think everyone's saying yeah. Like, I know we all say no, and we all say it's not the philosophy, and we want to do it. We want to do it our way, and we want to sign players because we've heard the owners say that. We've heard Eddie Howe say that previously. That we're not looking to sign superstars. We're looking to sign players who can become superstars. However, as Graeme rightly says, the things have changed. We are now in and amongst the big boys, and we've heard people say ever since PIF took over that PIF want this done quickly. They want to rise through the stratosphere, if you like. They want to become the best, and the sooner they become the best, the better. So after Graeme's little speech, then it is hard to disagree with, because if PIF want Neymar Jr. and they say to Eddie Howe, listen, you're getting him, Eddie Howe's not going to turn him away. Do you know what I mean? There is concerns around squad harmony. There is concerns around an ego, prima donna, etc., etc. But it's Neymar Jr. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a big name player. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that we are in that market for those type of players. However, to answer your question when you were saying about the loan deal, that's kind of like the perfect scenario, isn't it? He comes in for 6 months, the media spotlight, all the attention's on Newcastle, and then he goes back to Saudi Arabia once the season restarts. So really, that would be the best way to kind of, put all eyes on Newcastle, without actually having to fund the massive wages and the massive transfer fee, which I'm assuming he would, what would be required to sign him.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point on, but you kind of give arguments for both sides of the coin, really. But look, Richie, I'll come to you with regards to the Neymar link. Like I say, it is a link. It's not a guaranteed, solid that it's going to happen. But I've spoke to numerous fans of various clubs, Chelsea, Man United, even Arsenal, and they've all said, "I take Neymar all day long if he was available." So, I know that we've all said no, but I kind of think, are we kind of turning our nose up to a player that's world class? He is 32, and Craig Lee is right. He's not a great age. I think it was Craig Lee. He isn't.
Yeah, it was.
Not in football terms. Or that I give my right arm to be 32 again. Well, maybe not. But another conversation. But
he's only 31, Pete. He's only 31.
Even better. Even better.
That's a deal to that, isn't it?
I find it curious, guys. This is a fan base who put up with Allan Saint-Maximin. Are you not willing to put up with Neymar?
He's going early.
We're talking with Neymar. We are genuinely talking about one of the greatest talents of a generation, and he's still only 31. It's like, come on, guys. Like, let's not look into it too deeply. This is Neymar we're talking about.
Richie, what do you say to that?
Well, I tell you what, Graeme's going to be shocked when we all. I tell everyone now that obviously who watched the show the other day, we all turned our back on Messi the other night. So if we're going to turn our back on Messi the other night, we're going to turn our back on Neymar, aren't we?
We're bad, aren't we? We're bad.
To be fair, obviously that was before we knew Messi was going into Miami, which was announced yesterday. But for me, I can see where Graeme's going. Yes, he's still classed as one of the the prestige players out there and stuff like that. And I think the issue, you go to Man United, you go to Chelsea, and all these places, they've still got players of that ilk in their squad anyway, and they've probably got the managers that could deal with them and stuff like that. Whereas Newcastle at the moment are, it's more about the squad, full stop, and the way that they play as a collective, as a team. And you don't want one potential bad apple to come in. There is that times when he goes missing a few times during the season, where he picks up deliberate suspensions certain times of the year so he can go home to Brazil. Is that really the same sort of character that you want played for our team? You know, we could be, you know, a really huge game against Man City or something. Then you potentially your best player in Neymar decides, I just fancy a couple of weeks break in Rio. Do you really want that? To be fair, no, I don't. But going back to what Eddie Howe originally said about having the marquee players, like you mentioned, of Graeme's article a couple of weeks ago, is there's marquee players out there who would still fit the mold that Eddie Howe's looking for and stuff like that. So just look at them ones instead. You know, they've probably got years ahead. No doubt it'll be, if you go to the Isak type mold, he's going to probably be one of these marquee signings going forward, world class players. Features like you're probably going to talk of Isak and, you know, Mbappe potentially in the same breath going forward. If projections the way things are going, there's going to be plenty of them out there. They're all going to be great ages. They could build with a team for years to come. And you're going to possibly risk all that. And yes, whether the Saudis are going to substantiate all these money from, subsidize all the money from whichever Saudi team potentially takes them. Yeah, and yes, okay, the one good thing would be, as we discussed tonight with the Messi deal, it would be fantastic commercially. You know, you'd get loads of like shirt sales and stuff with Neymar or whatever the back, but it's not really going to do it on the pitch, is he really? That's just my personal point of view. Obviously, I don't know if Daz is any different to that, but
what do you think, Daz, before we move on?
Well, like I've said all along, I don't want the players coming towards the end of their careers, and I know Neymar's only 31, but I think though if it plays out the scenario that Graeme is painting there, and it's Piff calling the shots and bringing in these marquee signings like Neymar or whatever, I think it would probably be the beginning of the end for Eddie Howe, because I just could see a domino effect then, because things will get out of his control. Like the way he has it today, he has a major say in everything, and it's all about the harmony, and it's all about the project. If you listen to the let's call them the minority owners as well. But there has been a game changer this week with PAF buying the Saudi clubs, and that loan option does change things. Like for me, I didn't want to spend the transfer fee and a massive outlay on wages for these superstars and disrupt everything. But you can kind of warm to it a small bit, if it's coming on loan for a fraction of that, let's say. But let's see what direction it goes. I still can't see it's going down that direction yet.
So let me throw another potential marquee signing at you, and it came out today. Scott Wilson and the Northern Echo talked about Newcastle United will make a move for Declan Rice, but accepts that there are major obstacles that they will have to overcome. Now, I'll come to you, Graeme, firstly on Declan Rice. It wasn't your article, but it has been well talked about, and it's been confirmed today that he is going to play, or he has played his last game for the club. The owners have said he's moving on in the summer. How do you rate Newcastle's chances of potentially being in that conversation of Declan Rice? And would you consider him a marquee signing?
First, I wouldn't necessarily consider him marquee in that regard. Newcastle's chances of getting him very low. There is an interest there. They've registered it. I don't see him. He's never one of these players who's had a real interest of going to Newcastle. He hasn't shown it. I think Newcastle certainly had a chat, but no. You've got Arsenal and Chelsea. He is quite a home boy. You know, he doesn't really want to leave London, from my understanding. He's got a lot of teams after him, but I think it's a straight battle between Arsenal and Chelsea, and he wants to go to Arsenal particularly. And in terms of, you know, if we're to believe that what I was being saying, obviously, how will Newcastle pay 100 plus 20, so 120 million pound deal plus 300 grand a week for a player? That doesn't ring true with what Eddie's been saying. I think obviously he's playing down expectation levels, but that is the sort of player who they will be looking at. In terms of Declan Rice himself, yeah, I say not a marquee sign in terms of his name. It would certainly be a shot across the bows of every top 4 team. Of course, it would be. It'd be a sensational signing. I think there are other ones out there who they will be looking at, but I think Rice and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's because he doesn't particularly think Newcastle would be a good move. I think it's just with his situation himself. I think he's most likely to stay in London. And because of that, I think that's probably a non-starter really for Newcastle, just on that basis. And it's the same reason he probably isn't looking at the clubs in the Northwest as well. It's not a Northeast thing. I think he's very, very happy in London. It'll be very, very hard to get him out of the capital.
Would you agree with that? Richie, I'll start with you. Would you agree with that? It's going to be hard to get Declan Rice sort of out the capital and away from the likes of Arsenal, potentially Chelsea?
I think it obviously following what Graeme said, deep down probably yes it is. However, he has it's obviously considered the deal because you saw his reaction when he was at St James's Park when obviously Trippier and them lot went over to him at the end of the game. He's had Eddie Howe loved it as well. He'll appreciate Eddie Howe being a fantastic English coach as well, which could obviously help him develop as well going forward. But sometimes I think it's that thing. If you're already in London or you're an overseas player coming to London, everyone always presumes it's a hell of a lot of an easier move than coming to the Northeast. Yeah. And is that a lazy narrative? Probably, yeah, it is. If you're someone who's a London lad anyway, from growing up, was he's born and raised there, it's all new. That's all he's used to. And perhaps he just wants to have the easy life, and obviously just doesn't really want to have to relocate. So, we've had that interview with Joe Willock the other month where he said it took him a long time to settle down in the Northeast. He felt homesick and stuff like that. Obviously, Declan Rice as homesick, it might be completely different to what Joe Willock is, but that doesn't necessarily mean he would settle in straight away. But it's one of those things. There's a few comments coming through it. It's nice seeing that we're at the table for talks with Declan Rice and stuff like that. And to be fair, that's where we should be aiming now, especially now that we've got Champions League football, because as Graeme said earlier on, you've got to strike while the iron's hot. Yes, we're 12 months probably ahead of the project and stuff like that, but you've still got to make the most of it when you get there. And this is where you need to take a steal a march on teams like Liverpool, Spurs, who need to get back to that big table as well. So this is where you need to start getting ahead of them.
Great points. And Chris, Richie talked about striking while the iron's hot. If we come in with the first bid and say, here's X amount of money, West Ham, here you go. Does that change things? Does that make Declan Rice go, oh, they're really serious? Because what was really interesting, I don't know if you guys listened to it, is his interview on BT Sport after the game, is that he said, there is interest, but nothing concrete. If Newcastle came in first and did exactly what Richie said and said, strike while the iron's hot, do you think, in your opinion, that he might go, actually, I need to consider this?
Can I just interject there, Pete? Where he says that, but him and his father, there's been a lot of talks behind the scenes. He's well down the road with Arsenal and Chelsea, well down the road. He's not going to say it, but there's been an awful lot of talk. He knows exactly what's on offer at those two clubs.
But has there been a bid, though?
There hasn't been an official bid, no, but because West Ham are demanding 100 million plus 20, which at the moment, his first choice Arsenal aren't going to pay. So that may be if not Arsenal. What with Declan Rice is a situation similar to Harry Kane from last year. He's got 2 years left. Well, he's got a year and an option. If West Ham don't want to sell, if no one comes up with the price, West Ham don't have to sell. David Sullivan's where he says it was Rice's last game. It was likely Rice's last game. Sullivan's not going to take a bargain fee here. Yeah, Arsenal are going to come in and start bidding around 80, 85, 90. It's going to be a prolonged one. It's like you get the feeling it's going to be a prolonged one. But West Ham don't have to let him go. So don't be surprised here, guys, if at some point West Ham really dig their heels in and say, look, it's 100 plus 20 in add-ons. And there's not a lot. It remains to be seen who's going to pay that.
Great. I was just following before you went up, Pete. Just when you mentioned there, 100 plus 20 for Declan Rice. Do you realistically see any team paying that when you look at Bellingham going to Real Madrid for roughly 89 million up to 115 with add-ons? Surely more teams would be in for Bellingham at a cheaper price, even overall, than Declan Rice.
It wasn't about the money for Bellingham, though. He made his decision which club he wanted to go to, and that was it. With Rice, I think Chelsea will pay it, yeah. I think they probably will. And that's where Chelsea may win out. They may be the last man standing.
Chelsea, the banes of our lives, paying stupid money for players, ruining it for everyone. But Chris, I'll come to you. Can we put a little kind of firework in the middle of everybody and cause a little bit of disruption?
I mean, there's no reason why we can't. I mean, everyone knows we have the money there. Whether or not we can spend it is another question. But we know the money's there. And if we can structure a deal with West Ham, there's no reason to say why, there's no reason to say that we can't attract them. I mean, to put it on, to kind of put the shoe on the other foot with what Graeme said, if it were me and I was Declan Rice, I don't know. I don't know whether, I'm playing for my hometown club, or I believe West Ham's his hometown club, or perhaps he's a Chelsea fan. I have heard that as well. But if I was moving from one club to another, me personally, I'd probably want to leave the city and start afresh. Now, I know, that people have said Declan Rice doesn't want to upheave everyone. He wants to stay in London and stuff like that. But I don't know. Part of me thinks like maybe it might be too close to home, and maybe if Newcastle put the money on the table and then his family go, do you know what? We can get out of London, start afresh, try something new. Let's be honest, this Newcastle project isn't just any old team. It's not any old project. It's probably arguably one of the most exciting projects in world football. So if anyone could tempt him, I think it probably would be Newcastle.
Now, Daz, I know you're a big fan of Declan Rice.
Here I go. I have 3 points. 3 points
Go
to
for
Declan Rice. One, Decky Rice. Sitting in Ireland, we know Decky Rice can change his mind since he changed his allegiances country-wise. Two, Eddie Howe, massive admirer. You could see him nearly drooling talking to Declan Rice after we played them. And three, Piff. They like a surprise. Look at they just purchased the rest of golf there. Yeah, was it yesterday or the day before? So who knows? Who knows what will go on in the background? So watch this space. I think Newcastle will be a bit of a player when it comes to Declan Rice and to Newcastle.
Yeah, I do think going into a Champions League season, I've got the, and this is not about Neymar or Declan Rice. I just think that they're going to want to have a big signing. I'm not talking 100 and 120 million. I just think they're going to want to go into a Champions League season with a marquee signing of some sort. Whatever that marquee signing looks like, I don't know. And I think we'll probably find that. But I would be shocked if we don't come out of this summer with a marquee type signing that's going to be the poster boy of some form in our Champions League season.
Pete,
yeah, go for it.
Just to ask you a couple of questions, mate. So, and I'll ask this to Graeme, Daz, and Mitchie as well. Like Eddie Howe said in his press conference, didn't he, when asked, would the Newcastle fans consider some of Newcastle's targets to be marquee signings? And he was like, yeah, I think so. And then my second question would be, if we were going to make marquee signings, I think Graeme touched on a good point. Like within England, I think Declan Rice is a marquee signing. Do you think Declan Rice is a big enough marquee signing across world football? Do you think he's going to make, turn people's heads and make them go, just sign Declan Rice? Or do you think that Piff and, the owners may be looking elsewhere and going, do you know what? We could, I mean, just to throw a curveball at you, we know that Real Madrid are getting Bellingham. Now, in the centre of midfield, not to spark rumours, they've got Valverde, they've got Tchouameni, they've got Camavinga. Now they've got Bellingham, they've got Kroos, they've got Modric. Where are all these players going to play? And I'm just thinking, is Declan Rice a big enough name from Piff's point of view in order to be classed as a marquee signing? Yes, he's a marquee signing in the Premier League, but is he a marquee signing in terms of world football? I'll ask you first, Pete, but tell me your thoughts.
I think Declan Rice would be a marquee signing for us because he's a position that we really need to strengthen. Yeah. And he's a position at 24, 25 years old that we could probably have for at least the next 7 years. Like, so how I would see Alexander Isak as a marquee signing. I would see Bruno Guimaraes as a marquee signing because you can see them for the next 7 years and maybe even beyond, them playing for Newcastle and being the cornerstones of our team. I see Declan Rice as something similar. And I think that he could play for us for the next 7 years, potentially win us a trophy or more, and take us on to the next level. So I would consider him as that. Is he the glitz and glamour signing? Probably not to a lot of people. But for me, I see a marquee signing differently. I see it as, are they key to a position that we need to strengthen? Yes.
Yeah.
Great age. Got to get that in there. But equally, are they long term going to be crucial? That's like crucial to the development of the team. So for me, it's a yes. But I don't know what you boys think. Graeme, what do you think about what Chris has said?
I think a marquee signing is the Bruno, because he's the best player in the team by a country mile. He's the main signing. I think that's what I think a marquee signing is. He's the main signing. Which Rice, if you did get Rice, obviously I don't think he will, but if he was, then he probably would fall into that category. But I do agree with Chris, and if PIF are looking at it, is he a marquee sign from their point of view? And if Rice does come in, is he your best player? Probably maybe not, because Bruno's there. So I think he probably isn't a marquee signing. I think he'd be a great signing, a key signing. But I think there's a difference between key and marquee. I think marquee signing is that firework going off, isn't it? It's the one that makes the rest of the world sit up. If Newcastle signed Declan Rice, would the rest of the world sit up? Probably a little bit, but not massively.
Yeah, I think you're both yourself and Pete have hit the nail on the head. It's all about the definition of what is a marquee signing, and I think like you have Real Madrid and the Galacticos, that kind of marquee kind of signing stuff. For us, I think key players and key positions are key.
To be fair, it's also not often that you get a number 6 sort of player who's a marquee signing realistically either. Your marquee signings are like your attacking flair players, strikers, wingers, not your holding midfielders realistically that fall to that category either.
No, I think that's fair. However, there are other players to be linked with, and a lot of you may not have seen that it dropped just as we were going live, but there was also another article that came out earlier on with regards to a number of players, and it's the relegated players in particular. And it started with Luke Edwards put an article out, friend of the channel, saying value from winning signings hold appeal, including potentially the likes of Tyler Adams, and there was a number of other players in there. There was also an article come out from Graeme today, and you've highlighted, Graeme, some particular players and a few more. So I don't know if you want to talk about your article a little bit more with those particular relegated teams and potential players. Who in there kind of sticks out for you in those players that potentially Newcastle are interested in?
Yeah, so what I have to emphasise, these are players who Newcastle were looking at anyway, primarily. So you've got your likes of James Ward-Prowse at Southampton, James Maddison, Harvey Barnes, which we knew about, James Maddison's still the number one target for Newcastle in that role. But there's a few others there, a few interesting ones. We know they're looking for that right centre half, so they've been watching the lad Bella Ketchup at Southampton. And what people got to forget is there's still some spectacular players in these things, but in terms of that right centre half role, I think they've got a decision to make. Did they sign a replacement for Shah, or did they sign someone, if it was a Bella Ketchup, someone who's going to come in and then take over from him in 12 months' time, for instance? There's another player at Southampton who they do like as well, who fascinates me, is Carlos Alcaraz, who came in January. An absolute wonderful talent, that boy. I think he showed up so well in that Southampton team. And, if you show up in that Southampton team, there's something special about you. He'd be really interesting when I keep an eye on guys, because I think we're expecting at least half a dozen players here. It depends what they get over the line first, and there's Romeo Lavia at Southampton as well, who I think they want a bit more experience in that role, personally, at Newcastle, from what we're hearing. The Scott McTominay's of the world, Ward-Prowse's. We know Calvin Phillips is someone they've always liked, but it may be hard to get him out of City as it stands. But another one as well, in midfield-wise, Tyler Adams, we know is a player they like a lot, and he was magnificent for Leeds. I saw Leeds quite a lot this year, guys, and he was really fabulous in there. And you could see him fitting in next to Bruno massively. And one other one as well, guys. We're talking about English Premier League clubs. Nate pointed out even Fresneda, the right back who Newcastle have long been looking at, he was relegated at the weekend with Real Valladolid. His asking price is now cut in half. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Newcastle competing with him. But they're not alone in liking him. I'm sure there's a few. And Borna Sosa, the Croatian left back who Newcastle have been watching on and off for the last 12 months.
We know about him.
He's in a relegation playoff for Stuttgart, so he might be relegated as well. So they finished bottom 3 during the relegation playoff. So there's quite a few other players there who have been involved in the relegation, Maya.
Did that not happen, Graeme?
I think Stuttgart stayed up. They beat Hamburg over 2 legs.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. But so he was in trouble as well. So the left back as well. There's so many positions that Newcastle need to look at here. It's really fascinating, and it's they're not looking at them because they're being relegated. They are just so happen to have been relegated. So it will probably make Newcastle's life a little bit easier for some of them in that regard. So, yeah, it's a really fascinating situation with some of these. But there's some really good players there as well, guys. I think there's some really good players there. Someone like an Alcaraz, I think, is a fascinating player. You can see that he really does fit into that young up-and-coming sort of player who we think that how he's going to go for. But yeah, will he count as as someone to come in and provide backup? Will he be a starter? He's probably not as advanced enough to be a starter, but he certainly showed up well for Southampton in the season. It doesn't surprise me to see them looking at someone like him.
Definitely. Another player that we've talked about as well on the channel for quite a while now, nearly a year, is I think you mentioned him as well, Kyle Walker-Peters. Is from Southampton. A lot of people have turned their nose upon him months ago. He's not very good, not a good player. But then we've seen, he's versatile. He's got ability about him. Maybe not in the same mold as Trippier, but he offers something different. Boys, I'll come to you. Lots of players there in Graeme's article, and if you haven't seen Graeme's article, check it out. It did drop tonight. And it talks about a number of other players, some that Graeme didn't even mention there, that we've got a couple of snapshot pictures for that we can talk in a little bit of detail. But boys, any of those take your fancy? Chris, I'll come back to you. Any of those that Graeme mentioned that you think that they would be a good signing for Newcastle?
The one that we as a channel haven't really spoke about, although Pete, you and I did when we did away days with Mike on the Southampton podcast, is probably Bella Kotchap. Because if you remember, me and you were in complete shock, weren't we, that he was in the full German national team, which doesn't happen by accident. You've got to be a pretty good player, to get in that. And I think, am I correct in thinking Bella Kotchap's like 18 or 19? He's really young, isn't he?
I think it's like 19, 20. Like he's still really young.
Yeah, so I think Graeme makes a good point, because it is about we've been speaking about upgrading on Fabian Schär, but if we were to bring in a youngster who isn't far away from replacing Fabian Schär, or who could step in for them at any point, that'd be great. And then obviously when Fabian Schär moves on, you've got your ready-made replacement there. So Bella Kotchap's definitely one that interests me. I really like Livramento. I believe Southampton bought him from Chelsea. And he had a fantastic first season. I think this season he struggled a lot with injuries, hasn't he? But he looked a really good prospect. Really, what we should do is just get on the phone to the Southampton chairman and see if we can get like a package deal or something like that, because it's amazing just talking about these players. What have we listed there? 5 or 6 players who we'd all be reasonably happy with. I think the only one that I would want to stay away from personally, which may surprise some people, is probably James Ward-Prowse. Because 1, I think they're going to want too much money for him. And 2, which we've spoken about previously, lads, I'm not convinced on his engine. I think from set pieces, he's magnificent and no one can take that away from him. But I just don't know if he's that all-action central midfielder that Eddie Howe and the staff probably want. I don't know. And he's not, I think it's fair to say, he's not a great age. So he would probably be one. Yeah, it's like that, isn't it? He'd probably be one that I would stay away from. But certainly the others, they're all young players with lots of potential, and you can probably pick them up for a reasonable fee as well.
Definitely. Daz, any one of those from what Graeme's talked about interest you in particular? I will throw another name out there that you mentioned in your article, Graeme, and that's Aronson. the young American. I have to say, he didn't end up having a great season for Leeds. But I tell you what, when he first started at the beginning of last season, he looked like a live wire, full of energy, pressing high intensity. He looked really good. He just fizzled out, and I'm not saying he'd be the go-to signing for Newcastle. Far from it, but there maybe is something there as a squad player on offer. But he was another player that Graeme mentioned. But any of those players that we've talked about interest you, Daz? Anyone that maybe Chris has gone, nah, not a great age, you might go, great age.
No, I'd agree with Chris on Ward-Prowse, and I never wanted him to rock up at Newcastle because they're going to command too much for him. If we were getting him at a decent price, then as a squad player and an alternative for us, he'd be fine. But no, we're not paying 60 million for him. And a lot of the players mentioned, once we could get them at a decent price, then fair enough. I do like yourself, Pete. I do like Walker Peters. I know he's about 26 or something like that.
Yeah,
But
he's 26.
he always plays well against us. And I know when we went over the game as well, where all eyes were on him as well because what he could do. And I love Livramento from the season before. Not this season he didn't do much, but he was very good. I was thinking, it would be nice to pick him up. But once for me, these are kind of stock and fillers to the main key signings. I'm not going to say marquee key signings, but pick up a few of these because we need to build up a nice squad. So once we can pick up one or two of those guys for a decent fee, I'm not. Okay, Madison is on a different level there, and Barnes, but some of the other names and younger, maybe pick up one or two.
Definitely. Richie, anyone from there kind of take your fancy? Anyone that maybe one or two of, from Chris and Daz, maybe not interested in, that you might well be saying, they're the ones?
I think the weird one is there seems to be more interest for us, for players who were at Southampton, were the worst team in the league, really. That's the weird thing, isn't it? But I think for me, obviously, the Leicester one's straightforward. We all know about, obviously, Maddison and Bonds. I think all of us would be happy to take either of them at Newcastle going forward. Leeds, the one that really stands out for me at Leeds is Tyler Adams. I really like Tyler Adams. And I know, obviously, we all talked about, I know it was a 0-0 draw at St James's Park. And obviously, it got to the stage where everyone was saying, oh, well, look, Leeds did to us what we did to Arsenal. And when we went down there and got a 0-0 draw, and everyone was going, oh, you don't like it, we've done back to your dear and stuff like that. And all the ultimate shithousery stuff came out, and Tyler Adams was at the forefront of that. You remember that little video when Jacob Murphy's got to pick the ball up, and Tyler Adams kicks the spare ball at the ball he's got to pick up, and they both go separate ways, and Murphy's kicking off, and Tyler Adams just goes, well, what's your problem? What's your issue? So it's like he sort of already fit into that mold of the shithouse mags that everyone was talking about at the earlier on in the season. But he's also a leader as well. He's been captain of the Leeds as well. He's had a brilliant upbringing when he was at Leipzig as well before he went over to Leeds as well. So he's got all that. We're looking at people that Dominic Szoboszlai at Leipzig as well. That Red Bull Academy where they come through from Salzburg to Leipzig, and then it's very, very similar to what you get at Dortmund as well. He'd be a fantastic signing if he was to come in and hold that midfield. Yeah, he's probably not got the attacking flair and stuff like that, but he's probably one of these players who can walk straight into Newcastle midfield as it is now. But then obviously you go to Southampton. You've got a few names there which are probably squad fillers, if that makes sense. It's not one of them that you can really turn out and go, they're going to walk into the side straight away. Like Chris mentioned, you've got Bella Akacic. You've also got Mohamed Salisu as well, who pretty much didn't play any of towards the end of the season when he said that he was going to be leaving. So they just pretty much left out. They said he was injured, but obviously everyone knows he wasn't committed to the cause, so they just didn't put him in the squad. So there's another name. He was fantastic when he was playing for them. Livramento, as Dad meant, fantastic player. Obviously, horrific injury last season, and obviously you've got Kyle Walker Peters Versilli, and of course Carlos Alcaraz and Lavia. So there's some fantastic players there. And when you think about it, is it down to experience that they went down? Because obviously the managers that came in, there with Nathan Jones and then Roman Sellis at the end there. Do you think that Hasenhüttl, if he'd stayed, could he have got that group a bit more experience and play together better? So they might have actually put a fight up towards the end of the season. I think that Nathan Jones appointment was horrific, and that pretty much left them in, they're already a 6 foot hole, already before Roman Sells came in. So there's a lot of talent in that Southampton team, and we know what their academies have like to be bringing young players through. And this is probably the one time where they might not necessarily need to sell them, because those players will be fantastic to build up their experience in the Championship. So you might get a couple of them, and probably at a reasonable price as well.
Another one actually in the chat is Gunto from Leeds as well.
Yeah, Gunto.
Yeah, but maybe then again we're looking at bringing in our own up and coming, like Mint, for example, coming in and options there. But yeah,
definitely, and it's interesting because there's a few people in the chat saying, these players are no better than what we've got. We want to be trading up. We don't want to be going sideways. The argument that I'll put out there is that this squad is not ready for European football. It's not ready to fight on 4 fronts. So although the players that we want to come in, we want them to all be top level signings, they're going to come straight into the first team 11 and be amazing. It doesn't work like that. And that we are going to have to sign players that are going to supplement the squad. And there's a few of these players that we've just talked about, a Carl Walker-Peters, for example, a Carlos Alcaraz, that maybe even a Tyler Adams, that maybe doesn't walk straight into the team, but supplements the team and makes the whole squad better. So then, the likes of Longstaff or the likes of Joe Linton Willock, if they do get injured next season, you've got options. Alcaraz can come in and do a job. We don't know. Trippier played every game last season. He could get injured in pre-season or the first game of the season. Fingers crossed he doesn't. But if he does, we need an adequate replacement. Manquillo can do a job 20 minutes here, 15 minutes there. But if you're asking him to play 10, 15 games in a season, you want someone that you can depend on. And Carl Walker-Peters has got the experience to do that, as has other options as well. He's not the only option. So we do need to look at a squad and other options out there. I do want to say we've got 350 in the chat plus. Thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, just click the like button. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe and come and join us. Plenty more content coming over the course of this summer. And as well, don't forget, don't go anywhere because we've got the prize draw coming up later on. We've got loads of questions coming through, and we'll come to them in just a second. But there's another player that I wanted to discuss that came about today. And Graeme, I'm not sure, how much you'll know about the situation, or if you know something that we might not. But it was TalkSport that came in and said that Newcastle are tracking a target of Manchester United, which is Kim Min-jae from Napoli centre back. He's got a 42 million release clause. Apparently, it doesn't open or start until July. That release clause. But we've been linked with him. Whether it's been tentatively or, as in today, a little bit more closely. Man United have always been at the table, but they've been linked with Monaco centre-back, Alex Desais. So is this one a genuine link? What do you know about him as a player? And would it be a great signing for Newcastle?
He does have a clause in his contract, Pete. It's only available for 2 weeks in the first 2 weeks of July. It's applicable. Napoli had to put that in his deal because they stole him away from Rennes. He was about to go to France from Fenerbahce, I think it was, and they had to put that in. He's a wonderful talent. He really is. I've been doing stories about him for a lot of years since he was playing in China, mainly because Son wanted him at Tottenham. He's been banging the drum for his friend known as the Beast back in South Korea. He's a real unit of a defender. He's a brilliant player. He was the best defender in Serie A last year, arguably. Centre half. He's rock solid. He'd fit in lovely next to Sven Botman. He really would. He'd be a huge upgrade on what you've got. But yeah, there is other ones in there. And there's no guarantee he's going to leave, guys. He's very happy in Napoli. They're trying to get him to sign a new deal. And yeah, United are talking to him. United do need another defender as well. I do wonder if Kim does go to Old Trafford, does that free up Harry Maguire? And I think Harry Maguire is someone who does interest Newcastle as well. So they might have a bit of a domino effect there for them. But yeah, Kim's a wonderful player. Newcastle are being kept informed of the situation. There's no denying that they are. And if you don't win the raffle if you don't buy a ticket, guys. So it's very similar to your Rice conversation. If you're in the mix, you've got a chance. I don't think Kim. I think Kim will be not saying Newcastle aren't a big club, but I think Kim will be targeting someone like United to leave Napoli because he's very happy. The problem with Napoli is as well they're going to lose Victor Osimhen as well, so they'll be fighting tooth and nail not to lose another one of their star players. Obviously, with this release clause. It is doable, but obviously with these release clauses, remember, guys, they've got to pay it in full. I know United are talking to pay more than the release clause, so they can do it in stage payments, which is what most teams want to do. Even like 40-50 release clause is a big hit on FFP. It really is. It does. I'm told, I'm not an accountant, but I'm told by people who work in accounts at clubs, it really does have a massive impact on FFP, having to pay out 40-50 million pound in one lump sum. So I don't think anyone would want to do it ideally, but you may have to. But yeah, if you did get him, it'd be an absolute superstar. He's an absolute worldie of a player. He really is.
Definitely. And look, we did something similar in January. We paid a large lump sum for Anthony Gordon, and that obviously had a bit of a knock-on effect. But Richie, I'll come to you. Kim Min-jae, would he be the type of player that you want? One or two in the chat are saying John Claire Tadibo, who from Nice, who we've also talked about as well as another option, who is a talented player too. But these links are not going away. Kim Min-jae has been linked with us for quite a while now, whether it's tentatively or not. Well, what do you make of that?
It's interesting, isn't it? I think that the interesting thing is it's what what Graeme highlighted there was you have to pay the release clause in full, and obviously we know, and people we have this discussion with every show, and everyone brings up different points about FFP. It is a major factor in what you can do going forward, and it's easy enough, if that saves up the 50 million fee can be spent over a 5-year, that's 10 million a year, or you take a hit of 42 million straight away. That's technically, if you could buy 5 50 million pound players at 5-year contracts, and you're covering off FFP for 5 players for the same as you do for pretty much for one. Do you know what I mean? So it's huge in that sort of aspect. Yes, it does it there and then, but it's a big thing to do. Yes, he definitely is this type of player that Newcastle would want. He would, as Graeme already said, he'd be a fantastic partner for Sven Botman. The other person who, obviously, I know we did the short on Todabo the other day. The other guy who really stands out for me in Serie A, and obviously it's someone we know well in this country, is Tomori at AC Milan. I think he'd be a fantastic shout. We always know that AC Milan are struggling finance-wise and stuff like that. I just think it would be something, could you put in like a similar sort of bid that you could get for Kim, that you could go for Tomori? Obviously, he's wanting to be pushing towards to be an England regular. Obviously, AC might have had they won the league last year, but struggled this season. Is it something where you want to get back into the Premier League? And obviously, Gareth Southgate would see more of him. Fantastic player as well. He's a year younger than Kim as well. So that's an interesting one for me as well to keep an eye on.
No, definitely. There's a few interesting players in there.
There's a comment here, Pete, from Foxy, and it's a good one, and it's on the chap from Napoli. Is he due to do military service in Korea?
He's only doing a few weeks though.
He's doing it in June. He's doing it in June. It won't impact on his footballing career. He'll be back in Europe in July.
I remember Son had to do something similar. A couple of years or a few years back. Part and parcel of signing international players from different countries, different responsibilities. But if it doesn't impact it, it's not really an issue. What are your thoughts on Kim Min-jae? Yes, no. maybe, Daz?
Yeah, no. After I said to Richie earlier on that no, I wouldn't consider him. I went and I looked at him, Richie, after that guy, because I didn't know an awful lot about him, and he does look solid, doesn't he? He's a beast. How fast is he though? That's the only thing. And
He's one of the best. He's one of the best centre halves in Europe.
Yeah, he looked class.
His real value is close to 100.
Yeah, he looked really good.
He is that good. He is that good.
He put his body on the line every time and every challenge like that I saw in my YouTube clip, my Dennis Wise YouTube clip. But yeah,
Chris, you I think you brought something else to the table with regards to Kim Min-jae, because I think you put something in there that there could be a potential spanner in the works. Obviously, we heard the news from TalkSport, but was there news that there may be something going on with his contract? What did you see earlier on?
Yeah, didn't I? I posted it earlier. Yeah, Napoli are trying to get him to sign a new contract to therefore get rid of that release clause. And I think I'd said yesterday as well, Pete, that there was something else I posted, wasn't it? That Man United are looking at a Dutch centre back. I'm trying to think what the name of him was, but anyway, it was another centre back. And I just wondered whether there was anything in that. I mean, as Graeme said, Kim Min-jae, he's kind of burst onto the scene. Well, certainly for me, he has anyway, because if you'd asked me who he was 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. But, he's burst onto the scene. He's the Serie A title winner. And he's really, really highly thought of and sought after. So really, for me, he ticks a lot of boxes. And Daz is right to ask whether he's a pacey central defender, because we've spoken, haven't we, over the last few weeks, saying that as good as Sven Botman is, it would be nice for him to have a partner next to him who was particularly quick, because one thing that Sven Botman lacks is that real electric pace. So I think Eddie Howe is trying to get his centre-back pairing as balanced as possible. So to bring in a right centre-back who's particularly quick and good in the recovery would certainly help us, because with Fabian Schär and Sven Botman, they're both not particularly blessed with pace. And we've been caught out a couple of times this season. So I think, for me anyway, I think that Eddie Howe will probably be looking to bring in a pacey centre-back if he can.
Definitely.
Just another name that's going through the chat, Pete, and it's somebody we discussed last year as well, is Evan Dicker, who's obviously he's on a free transfer now. The only thing I would say to the people who I mentioned, that he is a left-footed centre-back, left centre-back, left-back sort of thing. So he doesn't, potentially fit the mold of what Eddie Howe likes, as in, he likes a right-footed right at the back, left sets.
He's also, guys, he's about to sign for AC Milan.
There you go.
Yeah, he's oh sorry, I do beg your pardon. He's signing for Roma. He's going there with Hassan Mouaz going there as well on the free. So yeah, he's surprised he hasn't had that much love in England. And Dika, very good player. Tottenham looked at him, but yeah, Eddie did confirm he likes a right and left footer starting lineup. So I don't think you're going to be signing a left footed centre half this summer.
No. Not when we've got Dan Burn as well. He's basically our backup left centre back, isn't he?
Yeah. For bottom 100%. It was Jurrien Timber, Daz, the Dutch centre back. Chris might have mentioned it. That Man U are looking at. They tried to sign him last summer. And it could be another option for them, obviously, at Ajax.
Connection.
Yeah, the connection with Erik ten Hag. But look, we're getting towards the hour mark. I just seen something in the private chat. Do we want to fly ahead with that for Graeme and throw some questions in? Literally throw some questions in.
I didn't see. Oh, is this the quick fire?
Chris's suggestion.
Okay.
I watched it the other night, boys, and I thought it was brilliant. It was really, really good.
Yeah, but we have to whittle down to okay. Let me
get rid of the longer questions first, and then leave the quick fire ones.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's what you do anyway.
Yeah, let me see where do I have the quick fire buzzer gone? I know where it is now. Yep. Give us a second. We weren't prepared for this.
There's one particular question that I want to come to after we go do these quick fires, Graeme. I'm sure you'll be very interested to talk about that when we talk about players that may be going out of Newcastle. But we'll get to that in just a second. But look, keep your questions coming in for Graeme. There's some fantastic questions as we've been seeing coming through the chat. Really, really good questions, and we'll make sure that we get through as many of them, if not all of them, for Graeme, and I'm sure Graeme will give us his responses. Carl said he's put new kit tomorrow? Question mark.
Yeah, there's rumours that the new kit's going to be released tomorrow, with it being the 9th of June. It's obviously the Blade Races. There's a big room, obviously, with the Sam Fender concert tomorrow night as well. And another telling factor as well, whether it's, I think it could be an announcement tomorrow for a Saturday release, is the fact that the whole website has got 20% off at any existing 22-23 stock, trying to get rid of it. So they've said there's literally a deadline, so I'm presuming after that the new kit will be launched at some point over the next 24, 48 hours.
Ooh. Okay, we'll go for some questions, though.
Go for it.
This is the quick fire. We normally whittle it down to the short ones, but we'll try to do this. Let's go. Okay, Graeme, first up is what is success for Newcastle next season?
Champions League, minimum Champions League qualification again. Minimum.
Okay. Would Graeme mind if we loaned the likes of Coral and Minty to Borough to get game time?
Well, we will need some wide players. Probably lost Cameron Archer. So yeah, do us a favour, maybe.
For Graeme, how many ins and outs do you expect for Newcastle this summer?
Question.
It depends. Do we include something like Mint? In terms of the first team squad, I expect a maximum of 6 incomings. Depends what else you can get rid of. I think there'll be a few going out. I think Saint-Maximin might be one of them.
Question from Lisa, as the buzzer goes. Do you think we generally have been approached for clubs for Bruno, or is it all a rumour?
I think, these clubs are as what happens is they keep abreast of the situation. Everyone's got an agent who's looking after other players to talk to the clubs all the time. I think that the likes of Barca and Real are fully aware of Bruno's situation, whether he's happy, or whether he's going to sign a new contract if it's not already done. So yeah, I think there obviously is interest out there, but I don't think you have to worry about this summer.
Yeah, you put an article out there. Newcastle confident over a new Bruno Guimaraes contract, despite rivals keeping tabs. So check that one out as well.
Although he may not be happy about not getting the Player of the Year trophy, guys. So I think I was shocked and horrified to see Kieran Trippier get that ahead of him, which I thought was a spectacularly bizarre an award, really. To say that Bruno wasn't Newcastle's best player last season is I thought it was mind-boggling, really.
Ooh, interesting.
Mind-boggling. And I thought Kieran Trippier finished the season awfully as well. I saw Newcastle quite a bit towards the end of the season, and I thought he was starting with that Newcastle game where he got took to the cleaners, and then Martinelli took him to the cleaners. I just thought Bruno, his levels. I think there's probably one game, maybe. I can't remember which one it was. It was on telly. One game where he dropped below a 7 or an 8. Apart from that, he didn't at all.
It was Villa away. He was awful at Villa away.
Yeah, but
to be fair, that was we had Longstaff missing. It was actually proved how integral he's been to the midfield three alongside him.
Yeah, they were all rubbish that day against Villa away, and they all admitted it as well. So fair play. Interesting take. I thought Trippier had a great season, but
what you thought? You really thought he was better than Bruno, Pete?
I thought his
really.
I thought his influence was up there in terms of what he produced. Leader.
I'll tell you what, if you took Kieran Trippier out of that team and then took Bruno out, there'd be 30 points difference between taking the two of them out.
Do you know what? To be fair, Pete, you've got to give Graeme his due here, right? You look at when Trippier came out of the team towards the end of last season, when he was injured, when he was injured against Villa at home after he'd scored, and we still went on and comfortably stayed up. Whereas when we took Bruno out of the team, we looked lost in that midfield. So there
was that stat going around, wasn't it? There was that stat going around at the time when Bruno was out. I remember going to a couple of games where the points. But I just don't think Bruno gets as much credit. I don't think he gets as much credit as he deserves. I big him up all the time. I think from some Newcastle fans, I don't think he does. I don't think you appreciate what you've got. You've got a world-class midfielder there, and you need to start recognising it.
I think you're right from the point of opposition clubs and fans, I don't think they appreciate how good he is. I think we do as a fan base, but I don't think they do. The thing I'll come back to on Richie is that with Trippier in every game last season, we got top 4. So you could kind of.
But you could also argue that you've got a stronger squad around you as well, though, Pete.
I think Nick Pope I think Nick Pope and Sven Botman had more bearing on Trippier than he did on Bruno.
I think I would agree with Botman. I would agree with Botman and Pope. To be fair, yeah, I thought Botman was outstanding last season.
I think that's right, definitely.
I think you've got to throw Joe Linton into that chat as well.
Joe Linton was good, but guys, I just think Bruno is that keystone. You take Bruno out, and it's just, I said, last at the start of the season, I said, I don't think there's a bigger gap in any Premier League squad between your best player and your worst. And your best player is Bruno by.
Who's our
The
worst
other stat you've got to go as well. They are talk about breaking the salary cap for Bruno's new contract as well. So I think that says a lot as well.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who would you class as our worst player, Graeme?
In terms of talent in the squad, Paul Dummett.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't think many people would disagree with that. However, we talked about players being out, players being in. Let's talk about this man, Allan Saint-Maximin. Look, Graeme, you always love an Allan Saint-Maximin conversation when you come unloaded.
I just like being proved. I just like being proved right, Pete, and with him.
We do it. But look, Allan Saint-Maximin, lots of talk about his future, his comments that he's put out. His comments.
There we go.
Allan Saint-Maximin, he's also put another comment out that maybe, I think it was either yesterday or today, that maybe kind of counteracts what he put out. But look, everyone thinks he's going to go. Graeme, what do you know about the Allan Saint-Maximin situation, and what do you think is going to happen with Allan Saint-Maximin?
Well, he's not getting a new deal at Newcastle, that's for sure, and he hasn't earned one. I think that he will look to move. I think he will want a new contract. You know, he's trying to see where he's going to go, guys. You know, he's not going to top 4. He's not going to Arsenal, Chelsea, or that. This is a guy who scored less Newcastle goals last season than Chris Wood. It's just a bang, guys. And I wish. Where's my clip, Pete? When I said this in November or whatever it was, he's a bang average Premier League player. That's all he is. And when you were down at the bottom, he sparkled. But now, you know, he's a bench player, which is Eddie Howe knows he's a bench player. That's why he spent most of the season on it. And that's no disrespect to him, but he's just not good enough for where you're going. I think he might end up. You know, will he end up? He's not good enough for Marseille. Will he end up at a high end Italian or French club? Maybe. I don't see who in England's going to take him. Maybe if you can.
AC Milan have been heavily linked.
He's not got AC Milan. Could you con Everton or someone to do it? But
don't start with them.
Don't start that, Graeme.
Not with Mr. K in the house, Jesus.
You know,
could we?
I think. Do you know what? I think he was good. He was great for you whilst doing the Steve Bruce here. He was your light. He was your shining light, and he was great. But that's the level. At that level you're at, then he was great for you. Yeah. And he's just one of the many players, and he won't be the only one. You know, he's not going to be the only one who you're going to have to move on from in the coming years. Who was a previous fan favourite, who you're going to have to move on from. I just never got him. I think he's lazy, doesn't contribute half of what he should do. And I think you'll be lucky to find a buyer for him, guy. I think he'll go somewhere, but you're not going to make a big profit on him.
What price do you think he'd go for, Graeme? We're debating this on Tuesday night ourselves.
He's not. His wages aren't massive. I know that. If you can get 25, you'll be doing well.
Pete said this the other night.
You'll be doing very well. And I think it's someone who, you know, he's one of these players who I think is a little bit sulky. So when he isn't getting his game, this summer he's going to move even further down the pecking order. We know that. Newcastle are out there trying to sign a left-sided forward. He's not silly. He knows that. He reads the press. He's thinking he's going to land even further down the pecking order. So who knows? Maybe Sheffield United or Burnley might take a risk on him to spark their time back in the Premier League, someone like that. It'll turn into a fan's favourite somewhere. It's just where Newcastle are as a Champions League club, he's not good enough.
I genuinely, I think if Allan Saint-Maximin leaves Newcastle, he's going to want to go to a team that's playing in Europe. That's my opinion. Why I think someone. That's
like why I linked him to a French club, Pete.
Well, could well be.
No, as in the only chance he's got to play in Europe is literally being there.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. But I just think, at the end of the day, ASM holds the cards, because if he turns around and says, if there's no club that I want to go to, I stay. And yeah, he'll be on the bench, which I don't think a lot of Newcastle fans would be against, if I'm honest. I don't think a lot of Newcastle fans would be against if he stayed and played a squad.
I think he would be up. I think unlike Miguel Miron, who he's got the club at his side, I think he would be. He's going to be a great squad man going forward. He won't mind coming off the bench for most of his performances, and he's going to put 100% in. I don't think the same can be said about Saint-Maximin. I don't think they say the same thing.
No, and you're right. He's not going to be happy playing on the bench. You're absolutely right, and I agree with you. And that's the big part of why he's going to leave. But I think if he's going to leave, he's going to want to go to a team that is playing European football. And because he holds the cards, because he's still got years left on his contract, he's got a couple of years left on his contract, he might turn around and say, well, if I'm not getting the team that I want, I'll stay. And that might throw up a spanner in the works for our summer. Because
I don't think he's on a massive contract though, Pete. So I don't think it's an issue for Newcastle. He's not one of the higher earners. He really isn't. So I don't think it's a massive issue. As
you said, we've got Allan Saint-Maximin, we've got Joe Linton that can play there, we've got Isak that can play there, we've got Gordon that can play. That's 4 players. If he decides to stay and he doesn't like the offer that's out there for him, Craig Lees just said send him on loan. But it's a team that's going to want to take him, and it's a team that he actually wants to go to. So this is where someone like ASM might turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to stay. And he might put it on his Instagram or Twitter, however he wants, in terms of he wants to fight for his place. But I think if he goes, he's going to want to go to a team that's playing at a high level.
How about with the link of with the Saudi clubs and PIF? How about him going to one of them?
I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out, Daz. I wouldn't rule the Middle East to move out. I know if I did a story, I think in January, February, there's Middle East interest in him. Wouldn't surprise me.
You might get more than 25 million then as well, Graeme, because they might pay over the odds if it's one of the top 4 clubs.
Well, exactly. Well, it's a case PIF moving from one place to another. That might be. I imagine they're looking at this. It'd be a very good way to get rid of some FFP
it's
as
what
well.
Watford do.
Yeah,
what Watford do with Udinese.
So I wouldn't rule it out at all. We know he's not getting in the French squad. He's nowhere near it for the Euros next season, so that's not an issue for him. He's not got any national concerns. So I wouldn't rule it out. And I think the Saudi Arabian Pro League, they're going for these marquee players, but they're going to be going for this next level. We're seeing Adama Traore's got an offer out there. Saint-Maximin is probably not as good as him, but it's not far off. So I think
Kante went yesterday, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're going to see these marquee players like the Kantes and Benzemas who are going to be on £250,000 a day. But then players like Zaha, Traore, and Saint-Maximin could fit into that category.
We were saying the other night, Graeme, and I think it's fair what you're saying, and that we'd be doing well to get 25 million purely off the fact that, like Pete said, we know what clubs would be interested in him, and we know that he would probably want European football, as Pete's already mentioned. The advantage of someone like Saint-Maximin in moving to a Middle Eastern club is that, and I think this is fair to say, if we were to sell him for, say, 40 million to a Saudi Arabian club, nobody would raise eyebrows and go, "Whoa, how have they got 40 million for Saint-Maximin?" Because
I would.
I take your point, but we were only discussing this the other day, Graeme, when we were saying, if you watch back all of our away day shows that we've done this season, when we ask every single away day fan who's the one player you're worried about for Newcastle, they all said Allan Saint-Maximin.
You know what? I get that off the journalists when I'm sat in the press box as well. I do get that off the journalists as well. And when they come on and they're worried, I always say to them, "You got nothing to worry about here." Not really.
Hey, come on, he's not that bad.
And then
Jesus.
10 minutes later, when they're nodding at me, going, "You're right about him, aren't you?" Yeah. So I just find his attitude disappointing. You know, it's not, I can't remember which game it was. It's somewhere you see him hitting the floor, and you think, "Oh, he's going to be in the mood for 10 minutes now." And you see Jason Tindall has to spend 10 minutes trying to get him out of his strop on the sideline, and do you know what? He's not an Eddie Howe signing. He's really, really, out of all his squad, he's not an Eddie Howe player. He really isn't.
We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. One thing I want to say is that, like, you know, I think Bill put a comment out and said, like, ASM's crap. He's not crap. I think that's disrespectful. I think that's disrespectful to say it's crap. And we're laughing.
That isn't me on the sub. That isn't me on another account, by the way. That's
to be fair, we're laughing, but ASM saved us. He was there and he fought for us when nobody else wanted to. When nobody else wanted to be at the club. We could have been in the Championship without him. And we're very fickle as fans because we've got all this money now and because we're going places. We're like, yeah, get rid of him. He's crap. He's this, that, and the other. He's not crap. He's been a great servant for Newcastle in times where he could have made moves to other clubs. Maybe not the clubs that are like up there right at the top of the league, but clubs that were certainly better than us at the time.
You're just in a different level now. You're just in a different place.
And that's right. And honestly, Graeme.
And I said, Pete, he won't be the only one. There will be others.
To be fair, Graeme, we said this at the start of the season when you're going to start seeing people that you're going to have your Willocks, your Longstaff.
Yeah,
they're going to be the people like you've had.
I was going to say that. I was going to say those two, Richard. It's players like that who are going to move on.
Yeah. They then become squad players. They could become like the people who'll be doing your Carabao Cup games, FA Cup games when you want, if you still compete in Europe and stuff. That's how the squad needs to be strengthened as well. So our first teamers now need to be like the subs, technically coming on, and then it gradually moves further back to they're in the 25-man squad and stuff. It's just natural progression, and unfortunately, fans are going to have to get, as Pete said, he is right. A lot of Newcastle fans, you know, we really appreciate what he did. He was a fantastic player for us in our dark days. But unfortunately, the team's moving in a different direction now. And we said it 12 months ago, he either moves in the same direction or he gets moved on, unfortunately.
And do you know what? Like Pete said, it's not even for me. I mean, it might be different for Graeme. For me, it's not even the fact that he's crap. It's just the fact that he doesn't fit this system, and he's not an Eddie Howe type player. And Eddie Howe kind of wants, you know, the skill, he wants the commitment, and he wants the work rate. And Allan Saint-Maximin, as much as he's tried, and we've seen that he's tried, you know, whether he's not got the fitness for it, whether he's not got the body type for it, whether he's not got the attitude for it, which some people may question or not like. Either way, he struggles to have a run of games and be able to play in this system that Eddie Howe's been playing. Can he turn it around? Who knows? But in the time that Eddie Howe's been here, he's struggled to do that. And on his day, we've seen, and Graeme, you may have seen at the odds time, on his day, we know what he's capable of, and that's the frustrating thing. But sometimes certain players just can't produce that week in, week out. Yeah, it's just one of those things.
Lisa said about the ASM tattoo with regards to me. It's not about me protecting ASM. I'm just loyal to players that I know have given everything to the club. I was the same with the likes of John Joe Shelby. I was the same with Matt Ritchie, Jamal Lascelles. They were here when nobody wanted to be here. Even Dwight Gale, before he left, he wanted to be here. He fought for us when nobody else wanted to. Maxi effectively kept us up for 2 seasons. And then Wilson came in and helped carry the can a little bit after that. And so I don't want. I'm not a fickle fan. I don't want to be going 1 minute. Max is amazing. Then because we get a little bit of money in, and because we're moving up the table, he's crap. Get rid of him. Yeah, players will need to move on, but I think it's important to be respectful about it and not just say they're crap or they're shit or let's just get rid of them now because they're no good. Let it be part of a process that they move on. As you've talked about, Joe Willett, Joe Linton will eventually potentially become squad players. Fabian Shaw will be the same. Fabian Shaw is one of our best performers this season, but at some point he'll become a squad player. But let's not turn around in a year's time and say because he's not been playing as well, Fabian Shaw's shit, he's rubbish, blah 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 blah. Let's be respectful to the fact that he's done a job and he's turned his career around, and be respectful to that fact. I think it was Craig Lee that put about, but he fit into Steve Bruce's tactics, which is why Allan Saint-Maximin played so well. What tactics?
Steve Bruce had no tactics.
He didn't even play tactics. ASM was having to make 60-yard runs because we were sitting on our 18-yard box because we didn't know how to attack. He was the only guy that was doing the business. He was doing it on his own. But as I said to you a year ago, if Allan Saint-Maximin doesn't perform or do the business that we want him to, and certainly with our rise this season, he'll move on. And he will. And he'll move on. And what I hope, right? I think I said this to you separately, Chris. What I hope is that in a year's time, I hope that we're not having the same conversation about Anthony Gordon that we're having about ASM now. Yeah. Okay, because if Anthony Gordon doesn't perform next season, I don't want people shitting on Anthony Gordon. He doesn't deserve that disrespect. We should be getting behind our players and not just getting, oh, he's crap, get rid of him. Because
he has to earn that respect first. He has to earn it though, first, Pete.
He does have to earn it. He does have to earn it. But what I'm saying to you is that ASM has earned the right to be given the respect because of the work that he did before the takeover. If we did not have the takeover, ASM would have left and moved on to a team that would have been performing better than Newcastle. As it turns out, we got the takeover and now we're getting better players and we will move on ASM, and I think that's right that we move him on, but let's not disrespect him on the way out and say that he's crap and he's shit and he's rubbish. For me, I'd take him as an impact player. We said it on squad games. I'd take him as an impact player. I'd say, you're not going to play every week, but stay as an impact player. If he doesn't like that, move him on. But I think that ASM will turn around and say, if I'm going to move on, I want to go to a team that's playing in Europe. And he's well in his rights to do that because he holds the cards with the contract. And someone else said, oh, they'll just throw him in the 21s. I guarantee you, Allan Saint-Maximin will not play in the 21s at any point for Newcastle. No way.
No, you're right to speak up, Pete. And you look at Chris did the same for Andy Carroll back in the day.
Andy Carroll, I loved Andy Carroll. I thought he was good.
Right, let's move on.
He's had a better career than Saint-Maximin, I tell you.
Oh, I don't know about
that. Why don't they put the international caps on the table, Peter?
Come on. Andy Carroll playing international football for England when they were at their absolute worst.
Andy Carroll was on his day. He was one of the best strikers in the Premier League on his day.
Well, Andy Carroll's had a full career. Allan Saint-Maximin.
We'll see. Well, he might shock Allan Saint-Maximin. He might leave, go to this European club, as you say, Pete, and get in the Euro 2024 squad. He may prove me wrong yet.
I don't think he'll get it. Allan Saint-Maximin will not play for France while Deschamps is still manager. Deschamps is very particular. If you've watched France over the years, he's very particular on the players that he picks. He likes certain players, which is why Moussa Sissoko, even though he was crap for us, we're still getting in the French squad. He's very particular on the players that he picks for his squads. So Allan Saint-Maximin will not play for France at any point. We've had players that
he plays for the front three, though. It's perfect for Saint-Maximin. He plays for the front three, though. He plays Griezmann, he plays Colomboani. There's a front three there. If he was any good, he'd play for France.
Nah. To be fair, France's pool is bigger than anybody else's. Bigger than England.
He wasn't playing Benzema either, was he? For years, he didn't pick Benzema because him and Benzema fell out. Even though Benzema was arguably one of the most informed strikers.
There's a couple of. To be fair, there's a couple of others. France have got the biggest pool than anybody else, any other country, in terms of being able to pick quality. I don't hold ASM to the fact that he doesn't get into that squad. There are still quality players that are playing football right now that don't get the caps or the call-ups that some players do. Yeah,
I think we have a way. I think we have a way out of this infinite ASM loop. Richie, what are you going to say?
Obviously, I'm looking at the time. I don't know how long we've got Graeme for tonight, but it was just because obviously we started the conversation with the article that you mentioned about having a marquee signing. So it got us thinking because as we alluded to, everyone always thinks of a marquee signing. It has to be like a forward player, winger, as we touched on already. However, there's a player I want to bring up now, and there was a lot of talk 12 months ago about him leaving his current club, and Newcastle were briefly mentioned because, as we've all mentioned, PIF do want to make a marquee signing, and it would sort of fit the narrative of the system that Eddie Howe wants to go as well. And I just wanted to know that whether there was a lot of talk of him going to Man United last summer. Whether if that interest is still there, and two, is it someone that Newcastle could follow up because he would fit the system? And that's Frankie de Jong at Barcelona, Graeme. I was just wondering if that's someone who it ticks a lot of boxes. Obviously, it appeases PIF, fits our system perfectly. He's international Champions League experience as well. We know that Barcelona have obviously struggled financially. They want to bring players in as well, but can't until that's to shift money out. And bear in mind, he had that big contract situation last year where they were wanting to leave with all the money that they owed him and stuff like that. And obviously, Ten Hag likes it. We know that, but obviously they moved on and got Casemiro and stuff like that. So obviously, you can't really see them playing both of them. But does that open the door for Newcastle? That sort of player that Newcastle could potentially tick a lot of boxes that could fill what we're looking for.
It'd certainly be a marquee signing. Rich, he's a wonderful talent. He really is a world-class player. It's interesting the Messi effect, what it'll have on it. From my understanding on that situation, quite a lot of stories on Barcelona just 48 hours. It's been fairly hectic. But Frankie de Jong, he's one of the few sellable assets Barca have got. Manchester United are still keen on him. They don't think they're going to get him out, hence their move for Mason Mount. So de Jong, they don't need to get money out now in terms of they can't pay for Messi because he's not coming now. Obviously, they've been linked up like Bernardo Silva, etc. So I think if he did leave, it'd be to Manchester United because he's very close to Ten Hag. He loves him. So I think if he did leave, it would be to United, who are keeping in touch with him. But he certainly would tick the boxes marquee signing. I thought you were going to say Harry Kane to me, Rich, to be honest.
No.
Who I always thought was the one who Newcastle might go for and who knows might still do. But yeah, de Jong, that is the sort of player. It is the sort of player who would be spectacular for the whole.
I think the reason why I mentioned him as well because obviously he came into the youth ranks with Sven Botman as well in Ajax, so they know each other. So whether obviously Sven Botman would speak to him, but obviously, would he speak to Sven Botman and say, "Look, what is this club like? Obviously, you've been there 12 months. What's it like?" Sort of thing. So it's always once you've got an insider in there, it's a lot easier to actually bring people in. Obviously, with him being the first Dutch person we brought in under this regime and stuff like that, it sort of helps, if that makes sense. But obviously, whether it helps enough to bring him to the club is different.
I think if we're talking Barcelona, I think the most likely Newcastle sign for Barcelona is still Ousmane Dembele. The mind's that there was contact there. There has been contact between the parties. He's only got a year left. He's probably not going to get a wage increase there. I think he's still a really interesting name. I really do. And he would be essentially, his problem is keeping fit, isn't it? As we've seen, he's one of the most talented players in La Liga. There's a reason he's at Barcelona in the first place. That isn't always the case, but it's for him. I keep an eye on someone like him. I think he could be the sort of one who's like PIF could pay for, and if they need them, they need the players out. Now they're not doing Messi. How much money do they need to raise? That's something we've got to see. They're still trying to sign Ilkay Gundogan. They're still trying to do Bernardo Silva in the summer. So there is probably some exits to come at Barca. They want Fati out. Rafinha's probably not leaving because Deco's going in as sporting director. Deco, who was his agent. So, yeah, I think Dembele's want to keep an eye on, not just in Newcastle, but in the Premier League. But he's only got a year left, guys, as well.
Yeah, I think there was talk about Rafinha and one or two other players that were going to leave to raise that money. Then all of a sudden, just before Messi announced that he was going into Miami, that Rafinha is no longer leaving the club. So
his agent's going in as sporting director, which obviously helps him at the club. Deco's going to replace Jordi Cruyff.
No, that's fair play. I think with Frankie de Jong, he's already said. I think he said a couple of months ago that he is going to stay. He doesn't want to leave Barcelona. He wants to be in the club. Sorry, my wife's distracted me. Just clowning around. But I think Frankie de Jong, he doesn't want to leave. He didn't want to. He said he didn't want to leave in the summer when Man United were literally trying to put money down.
But what I will say, Pete, with de Jong, what they were doing there is that his people are fearful that Barcelona won't pay him the money owed, and so he's been told to never ever do not say a bad word about why you're at the club. You don't say a bad word about them. You don't say anything about leaving. You got to keep it because then Barcelona, when he does leave, Is he going to get the money back? There is politics at play there, because he was talking to Ten Hag all of last summer. There was massive interest there. United, as we see with some deals, United kept on at De Jong, and United fans were saying, "Why we keep going after him?" It was because Ten Hag knew he wanted to come. He wanted to move. He did want to move, but he's playing the politics game now, where he's owed an awful lot of money by Barcelona. He really is. So he doesn't want to give them any excuses. So when he does leave, that he brought the club into disrepute, blah blah blah. He did this and that. He saw how if they can upset Lionel Messi when he leaves, they can certainly upset Frenkie de Jong.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Are there any other players that we've talked about? Any other marquee players? I think we have De Jong. Is there any other ones?
For me, I keep an eye on the striker situation. They are looking around at forwards. Callum Wilson's only got a year left now. Is he going to get a new deal? I'm not 100% sure. I think Callum Wilson could be seen as a possible exit for me this summer. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see Callum Wilson depart at all.
Well.
I think you've got the likes you've got the likes of Bournemouth. He could go back to Bournemouth because even if he gets a new deal, is he getting a long-term deal off Newcastle? What is he, 31 now, 32 next summer? You're not going to give him a 3, 4, 5 year contract. Well, Newcastle aren't. Someone else might. So
any other clubs, Graeme, that you think he might go into them?
Wearing blue.
Good old Chrissy Kenwright over here.
I think Bournemouth would be fair favourites to go back down there, but you never know. Everton do like a striker, but they've
done.
But I say I had the dubious pleasure of watching Everton's final game of the season, and that was a tough watching that watching Dyche. Oh, it was absolutely horrendous. The way and if you're watching the two teams there's only one team you'd want to play for, isn't it? You want to play for Bournemouth because they're football.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But keep an eye on. I think Callum Wilson's an interesting one. He might be one who, where they say, look, we're not going to give you a long time contract. You can move on. I think it'd be fairly amicable, if he did go. And he's got, Wilson's got to think as well. He obviously wants to go to the Euros next summer. He needs to play. And do we see? And there's a chance that Wilson won't start the season for Newcastle. A real chance. Well, I think keep an eye on Callum Wilson. I think he could be a departure.
But I'll ask you, Graeme. Like, isn't staying with Newcastle and playing Champions League, if we finished third, for example, and went into the Europa League, still playing European football, does that not favour him? Because we've seen teams over the years that have got squad players, like Conor Gallagher, for example. Like, he barely plays for Chelsea. But because they played European football and he had the odd European football game, he was still getting in the England squad.
He is, but Callum Wilson's 31 now, Pete. I don't know when he turns 32, but he's got to think about it. This might be his last big move. This might be his last big contract.
But this might be the only year he plays Champions League football.
Yeah, but what's more? Yeah, but do you not think he'd rather go to the European Championships with England?
I think he'd rather play Champions League football. I disagree completely. I think if he goes to Bournemouth and scores 20 goals, he goes to the Euros. And playing for your country, I think, is more important for I think any player playing for international football at an international competition would probably rank higher in the Champions League for me.
You just have to get the house done up as well, Russ.
One of our sponsors.
It's an interesting. I think it's a situation that will come up. I think it's one, where because I don't know what you guys think, but I don't see him getting a long-term contract from Newcastle at this point. Is he in your? If you bring this left sider in, whoever it may be, if it's whether Harvey Barnes, for instance, and Madison's behind Isaac, and is Wilson starting? I'm not 100% he is.
I think if we bring in another winger, whether that be a right winger or a left winger. Pete mentioned that when we brought in Gordon, he felt that Gordon was going to play on the right. Obviously, we've already got Miggy, we've got Jacob Murphy on the left. If Allan Saint-Maximin stays, he's another option. You've got, and then if we were to bring in another winger who can maybe play on the left, like a Harvey Barnes, I don't think we see Alexander Isak playing on the left anymore. I just don't think we see it.
No.
Graeme, I just wanted to ask you, because it was something we put in our WhatsApp chat today. There was a rumour going around about Rodrigo at Leeds having a potential 3 million release clause because they were relegated. What is there any truth in that? And obviously, we were discussing about 3 million for who could be possibly be a squad forward for Newcastle realistically. scoring 13 goals at a really bang average Leeds side last year. Surely that's someone that comes in and strengthens your squad up front for pretty much nothing for 12 to 18 months tops, realistically.
I think there is a clause there for him to go, guys. Rodrigo, he's a fascinating player. I must admit, guys, in the time I cover Leeds quite a lot, as you know, with Newcastle as well. He's put in some of the worst performances I've seen in all my days of watching Premier League football. He's put in some good performances as well. I'm not saying he hasn't, but I can't remember which game it was. I think there was a game. I think it was Leeds Arsenal at home in October. I'm just looking back, where it was after about 20 minutes. He made a pass and the crowd cheered. It was that bad. That was the first thing he did. They sarcastically cheered him because he made a pass.
To be fair, ASM's had that on a bad day as well for Newcastle.
Honestly, guys, I wouldn't take Rodrigo at Middlesbrough, and so at Newcastle, I wouldn't even think about him. Thankfully, you've got bigger, brighter things to come than Rodrigo.
I agree, Graeme, 100%.
Oh no, do you know what? It was only when we saw it was 3 million, and obviously I said in our chat it was literally, I guess, a third choice striker.
I still don't think that'd be a good deal for you.
Fair enough.
I think that's about his level. I think he's had he's done so much better this season than I thought he would. No, avoid it at all costs, I would say.
I think if you're on the bench for Leeds, who were dreadful this season, and you're barely getting minutes, I think that kind of says everything, really.
I just don't. I think he's one of those. I think he's. I just don't think he's suited. I don't think he's suited to the Premier League much, Rodrigo. I think he brought in by Bielsa. And he wasn't quite right.
Valencia, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he's ever been suited to the Premier League, really.
I was surprised when they signed him because he didn't come with a massive pedigree when they signed him anyway, and they paid a fair whack for him. But
27 million.
Not as much as Mr. Rutter, who's had a very little impact. Club record signing. If you remember him coming in January, guys, he's had a miserable time. Yeah. I don't think Leeds will be getting the money back on him anytime soon.
Yeah, he didn't.
Is he likely to stay in the Championship then? Do you think he'll have to stay?
I think he might. It's going to depend on who Leeds appoint, guys. We'll see who they appoint. Is it a Gerrard, Parker? Do they go back to the Corbrand route? It's going to be fascinating to see. Leeds are one of those where they could keep quite a lot of that squad. And if they do, that's the thing with these three teams who've come down. Unfortunately for Middlesbrough watchers and everyone else in the Championship, these three teams coming down, they're very strong. They really are. Even when they sell these players, Southampton, ironically, are getting two of the best players in the Championship who were on loan there last year. Nathan Teller and Will Smallbone, they're getting back. And they were two of the best players in the Championship last season.
And look, this is a non-Newcastle United question here. I don't particularly rate Steven Gerrard as a manager, me personally. But would you take him at Leeds? Would you think that was a good appointment if Leeds did pick him up?
Well, I think with him, you get the Gary McAllister add-on as well, which I think obviously does appeal to Leeds fans. I think Gerrard, he had a bit of a bad time at Villa, but he probably won more at Rangers than Ange Postecoglou did, and he's just got the Tottenham job. So I don't mind Steven Gerrard as a person. I think he's good. I think be a bit of a risk. He's never done it in Championship. I think they may go for someone with Championship experience, if I'm honest.
Exactly what I said. Still actually in that chat. Maybe we
I
should
hope that Kefim Thuram rumor isn't true.
He's been in talks with Liverpool for a while.
Everyone's in talks with his people, guys. Everyone's in talks. Kefim Thuram is a player who Newcastle like, same as Manu Kone. Liverpool have strengthened with McAllister. A wonderful sign. That'll be one of the signs of the season. Liverpool talking to them both. Newcastle have talked to them both, as we know on the show. They've been talking to them for a long time. I think that Newcastle, if they signed one, I'm not sure they'll go through either of those two because I think they do want some of that Premier League experience. I know some of the fans won't want to hear it, but they do really like Scott McTominay. I like McTominay. I think he's a very good player. They want someone like that, not necessarily him, but someone of that ilk. Maybe Calvin Phillips. I think they want someone British and not necessarily British, but someone with Premier League experience really to be in there. Because Thuram and Kone could come in, but we look at Leicester. Samourie came in there and did nothing, and he was a cracking player. We've seen a lot of players. It's a massive risk, and signing a young foreign midfielder who's you want to be your main man. It's a massive risk. So I think that Eddie Howe, Dan Ashworth, and Piff, they might for this centre midfield role. I think you're looking at someone with Premier League experience. I do.
Do you think? And I suppose we've none of us have really talked about this player for a while, Graeme, probably because of the price tag. But do you think someone like Moise Caicedo is out of our reach in terms of price tag?
No, I don't. And I'd keep an eye on him, guys. I think Dan Ashworth knows all about him. He's a wonderful player. 80 million will be his price tag. Chelsea talking to him, Arsenal talking to him. Don't dismiss Caicedo out of hand. I think Dan Ashworth will be bang into this, and he'll know all about him. I know he loves him, and so I think he got a tough ask, beating Arsenal to him, for instance, or even Chelsea. But I think you're firmly in play with someone like Caicedo.
Do you think there's a possibility then, Graeme, if, say, for example, I mean, I can't rule Chelsea out purely because they've got about 87 midfielders, but in terms of Arsenal, if they go and buy Rice, does that mean they're going to go for Caicedo? Bearing in mind, they've got Xhaka, who I know is on the way out. They've got Partey, they've got Odegaard,
Jorginho as well.
They do want them both.
I've just started
today. Jorginho could be heading back to Italy. Yeah. Obviously, they're losing Xhaka. They do want them both. Thomas Partey, ongoing court case there, so we don't know what his long-term future is. And Chelsea, I would say, they're getting rid of Kante and Kovacic. They're saving an awful lot of money in wages there, so I wouldn't rule them out doing the double deal either. So Rice and Caicedo could end up I did say that in the story today. They could end up at the same club, them two.
Imagine that.
I know, strong midfield.
Yeah, I think for me, the two of them, I like Rice, but I'd take Caicedo. I think he's a wonderful player. I really do.
He was brilliant against us. Like that was the one game, was it? Well, that was another game we saw where Bruno struggled against Caicedo. Caicedo really, really done a job on him.
Yeah, definitely. There was that in the Arsenal game. The two games that I think Bruno really struggled in. Aside from the Villa game, but the Brighton game was because Caicedo was so good. However, on the flip side of that, at St James's Park, he played right back, and he was destroyed down there. So it's clearly not his position. He needs to play in the centre. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one. If people in the chat think that Caicedo would be considered a marquee signing if we went out and spent 80 million, who knows? We're coming towards the end of the potential links. One player that we haven't talked about that's been heavily linked with Newcastle, Dominic Szoboszlai. We haven't even talked about him. What do you think is going to happen with Dominic Szoboszlai, Graeme, from a Newcastle perspective?
From a Newcastle perspective, honestly, nothing. I don't think you sign him. If you get your way, you're signing James Maddison, and then so why would you sign Dominic Szoboszlai? I think that you're obviously being kept informed. I say no club has been offered more players from since the end of the season to now than Newcastle United. Maddison's the one. They really want him. There's a real, you're up against Tottenham, guys. If you can't beat Tottenham to a player, then you may as well pack up now. So, I think you've got a great chance of getting Maddison and even Harvey Barnes. If you got them two, that's a spectacular start to the summer. They are. Maddison is brilliant. Harvey Barnes has got such a high ceiling. I love him as a player. I think he's an absolute baller. I'd even take three of them. I'd take Dewsbury Hall as well. I'd take all three of them.
Hall's a good player.
But I think Maddison's the main one. If you get him, and I really think that kickstarts you. That takes you onto another level. One of the best attacking midfielders in the Premier League. And we know he's a player you tried to sign last summer. So I think he'll be the main centre of focus as we speak. Talks obviously ongoing. And it'll be down to the player. So you've got to try and persuade him to come up north. And I think he would.
So are you saying that Dominic Szoboszlai is probably the alternative if Maddison wasn't to come to Newcastle?
One of the alternatives, Rich. Yeah, one of the alternatives for sure. You're doing your homework because you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. It's a bit like these NFL boards where you have your first choice, second choice, third choice, and Newcastle are doing that now. You're going to have 5 or 6 options at every position. But Maddison is the number one for the attacking midfield role.
Where do you think Tielemans will go, Graeme?
Aston Villa like him. They've made an approach. He's on a lot of money. I like him a lot. I think if Arsenal didn't get Caicedo and Rice, wouldn't surprise me, or both of them wouldn't surprise me to see them come back in for him. They've always liked him. There's a real quality footballer in there, and on a free transfer. Yeah, I think he'll stay in England and he'll go to Villa, maybe Arsenal, someone like that. Yeah.
A couple more players, just really quickly to touch on. We had a conversation about a particular player that was linked last week in Ferran Torres. He's another Barcelona player that was linked with, who had some links with us last week. Is there any truth in that one? And another player we talked about last time, Graeme, Marcus Thuram. Is there any links in that, or is he dead set on a move elsewhere? What are your thoughts on those two players?
Marcus Thuram is generating a lot of interest, actually. He's one of these who's stood firm. He's on a free transfer. PSG like him a lot, guys. They really do. Wouldn't surprise me if he's also one who Saudi Arabia are looking at. But I think Newcastle like him a lot. I think Newcastle would take him, but I think he's like third or fourth on the list to play that left role and could be a striker. He would be a very useful signing, but I don't think he's top of Newcastle's list at the moment. But they do like him. They do. And in terms of Ferran Torres, not one I've really heard much on Newcastle, to be honest. He's one who Villa really like. Again, one who Arsenal like on the right-hand side. Newcastle aren't really, from what I'm being told, looking at a right-sider. They want someone who plays on the left, and Ferran Torres doesn't play on the left. So I don't see Ferran Torres really on Newcastle's radar.
Richie, you've got one more player you wanted to throw out there?
Yeah, it was someone we talked a lot about in the last two transfer windows, and it was we'd always got 12 months on his contract at Wolves. That's Ruben Neves. He would fit into that whole role. Have you heard anything in regards to Ruben Neves, Graeme? Not
in Newcastle, really. More Liverpool. He is on Barcelona's list, actually, guys. George Mendes is pushing in there. He's fourth or fifth on their list. I love Ruben Neves. I think he'd be great. I think Newcastle may want someone who they perceive to be a bit more athletic. But Ruben Neves, if you watch him, he is an athletic player. I think he's a top-class player. I think Newcastle have looked at him. He's on the radar. He's just, again, not top of the list. I think they want someone a bit more physical than him. And he's more of he's quite similar to Bruno, I think. And probably maybe too similar in some ways, the way he plays. So I think it'd be a good signing, but I don't see it for Newcastle.
Yeah, it would be a great signing. He would be.
Should he throw?
I think it's top notch. I think it's top notch.
Should we throw a few more questions towards Graeme as we wrap up, lads?
Quick fires.
Quickfire.
We see it out.
Okay. Let me get the buzzer again. Let me get the buzzer. 1 sec. To the buzzer on the way. First question as I hit the buzzer is, would you sell Miggy?
I probably wouldn't.
Ryan Giles, how good is he? Good is he? Would he be a good signing for Newcastle?
No, he's not Premier League ready. That's why he's probably going to go back to Middlesbrough. He's not ready for the Premier League.
Okay. Would you, Ryan Fraser? Would you take him to Borough?
No.
That was quick.
Ryan
Cherokee, is he on the move?
Or is he the young French guy? Testing me now, guys.
Leon.
Yeah, good, very good player. He's not coming to England this summer, though, from my understanding.
Okay. Would you have pineapple on a pizza? Great.
I wouldn't, but it's my son's favourite, so he would. No, it's not mine.
It's lovely.
No, Chris, no.
Oh, it's lovely,
no
mate.
pineapple on a pizza.
Lovely.
No pineapple on a pizza. No way. Graham's son. No.
I know. I'm still trying to get him into the Parmos, but he's not having it yet. But,
Parmo's nice. Parmo's nice as well. Yeah.
And the other 25 questions will have to wait for another day, I'm afraid.
The pineapple threw it off.
They really did. Look, I'll say, look, Graeme, first and foremost, absolute pleasure to have you on again. Absolutely spot on.
Thanks, Graeme.
Love to have you on. honestly, obviously, it's been a great show, great chat about all things Newcastle as always. And look, we'd love to have you back later on in the window to talk a bit more Newcastle as things start to
Anytime, guys. Newcastle
Yeah.
transfer news isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So
No, definitely. But yeah, let's not wrap it up. Daz, want to hit the sponsors? We've had 400 plus in the chat tonight, which is amazing. So I hope that everyone's been clicking the likes and the subs. I haven't checked, I haven't seen. Thank you to everyone that showed their support for Loaded Mag NUFC. It's been amazing, absolutely spot on. But Daz, take us home, mate. Take us home.
Okay, shout out too, and we have him in the chat tonight. A busy man, Russ, but he jumped in the chat for a while. Shout out to the radiatorshed.com as we put Graeme and Chris in jail there, and nice of Graeme to break that story that Chris led with the other day, Wilson to Everton potentially. But yeah, shout out to the radiatorshed.com, and get your radiators off Russ. He will sort you out radiators in lots of different shapes and sizes. Go check it all out at the radiatorshed.com. And also shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and Botch bathroomware. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, run by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. So, and here is a selection of some of the bathrooms. Graeme, now if you're doing up the house, this is the place to call because they have some spectacular stuff in their showroom. That's H2O Bathroom Design Co. That is it. Shout out to our sponsors, Pete. I'm sure we'll have a few shows coming up during the week as well, or it's Thursday, so into next week or whatever. We don't know where we are yet. We're expecting breaking news.
We're already working on next week, so don't worry, there'll be content coming out, that's for sure. We're not finished there though. We've got the sponsors out the way, the great sponsors. But we've got the old Chris.
Spinny wheel.
We got the old spinny wheel with the members draw.
Okay, here we go. It should be spinning there now. Can you see it? You can see it.
Yeah.
I'll zoom it up a small bit.
There we go.
It works. No, it's not zooming. All right, let's go. Best luck to everyone. This is a voucher for the club shop in Newcastle Club Shop, and you'll be able to, the value of the voucher, you'll be able to buy a new kit with it actually. So this is our second prize to give away in the summer giveaways, thanks to Tampa 2. Here we go.
£70 voucher, guys.
St. Louis Toon Army, congratulations. Congratulations. Now, St. Louis Toon Army, contact us. We'll give you about a week to contact us. And by any of us via Twitter, let us know and we will get that prize sent out to you. Of course, we won't be able to figure out who you are from that name, but unless it is also your Twitter name. But yeah, contact us and we will sort you out with the prize. We'll be back with next week for more prizes giveaways. So make sure you join up as a member to get yourself on that wheel.
Quality. Lovely stuff. Great draw as always. And as Dad said, we'll be back for more, that's for sure. But look, we're at the end. If you haven't liked and subscribed, make sure you do on the way out. It's been an absolute pleasure. Again, massive thanks to you, Graeme. Where can we find you for all your content on 90 Min?
Yeah, just on Twitter at Graeme Bailey. So yeah, on Twitter and around all summer. It's already been pretty hectic, but wouldn't have it any other way.
No.
We've had so many years of non-activity that we love the fact that we are constantly linked with lots and lots of players. But look, I'm sure we'll sign someone very, very soon and we'll be all talks again. But look, thank you to everyone in the chat. Have been amazing questions. Sorry if we didn't get to your questions tonight. We will definitely keep an eye on those questions and put them into our content as we go into next week as well. Well, I think we're about there.
We are there.
We are there. You are.
We're definitely there.
We're definitely there. But you guys take care. Have a fantastic evening, and we'll speak to you soon. Are we going for the how?
We're going for the how'd you like that?
How'd you like that? Yes.
Night, everyone.
Drink it, like me, then tell me if you like that, like that.